Hello! This is Wrawby Windmill. It stands high on a hill overlooking the market town of Brigg in North Lincolnshire. Originally an open trestle mill similar to Bourne in Cambridgeshire, it is now enclosed within a brick roundhouse. It's an English Midlands-type post mill with a circular wooden curb resting on top of the roundhouse wall, with cast iron rollers smoothly supporting the rotating body of the mill, an exceptionally stable feature in strong winds. This is Wrawby's post. It's a post mill. Every post mill turns on a post. And this post is the largest in the country. At its base, it is 600 millimetres square beneath this floor. Originally built in 1832 for a wealthy local landowner to serve his tenants and raise extra money for the mill rentals for the estate, it was damaged and declared uneconomic in 1915. But when the tenant miller, Mr. Andrews, paid for repairs, it was able to keep working, and when post-war death duties meant it had to be sold along with large parts of the estate in 1919, Mr. Andrews bought and continued milling until 1940, when a sale broke and wartime restrictions prevented any more repairs. In 1961, the derelict mill was again rescued, this time by local enthusiasts, and restored to full working order, helped by the donation of 2 oak trees from the original estate owners. Okay. Wrawby has no fantail, such as at Great Chishill in Cambridgeshire, and must be regularly turned into the wind to work at optimum power and avoid damaging side winds. The miller turns the mill, as seen here, by pushing the mill around using the tail pole. Some early tower mills, such as Lutton-Gouts, also used a similar tail post arrangement. Wrawby, like many other post mills, has a combination of common and spring sails. Now the miller here is John Sass, a leading authority on traditional windmill design, and John and his team have kindly agreed to demonstrate and talk about the technology of this wonderful old mill. John?
We have 2 types of sail, as you say. The oldest form is what we call hand-clothed or common sail. The reason that it's a common sail is that it was the only type of windmill sail up until the late 18th century, hence the name common. The way it operates is that we have a large canvas sheet that spreads over the sail frame, and then we can reef in the cloth on the sail depending on the wind speeds. So the first position as the wind increases from a steady wind is the first reef, and this is where we take the sail in from about 1/3 up from the base of the sail and wrap the cloth back to the main sail spar. That is the first reef. The second reef is taking the cloth in from about 2/3 of the way up of the sail and winding it in, and that also is known as a dagger point. And then the final setting, before the wind gets too strong or we take the cloth off altogether, is the sword point. And with this, we take the cloth in from the top outer corner of the sail and wrap it back in diagonally to the lower inner section and reef it in there. So those are the 3 main hand-clothed positions. The spring sails were a late 18th century development, particularly in English mills, whereby a series of canvas-covered shutters are held together on a long piece of wood called a rule. And the rule itself is then connected to a spring 2/3 of the way up the main whip of the sail by a long piece of wire. We can then set the tension of the spring using a lever arrangement, and by doing this then we can increase or decrease the tension of the spring depending on what sort of driving power we want for the mill. The post mill is the earliest form of windmill technology in northwestern Europe. The layout at Wrawby is very similar to a medieval mill, but on a larger scale. The main components up at the top of the mill is the main axle of wood, oak, on which is carried the front driving wheel called the brake wheel. So called because around the circumference of the wheel is a large elm brake which can be drawn onto the wheel by a brake lever, so slowing and stopping the sails rotating.
Millers would often observe a tradition which employed different sail positions to signal different events. The cross symbol for a short rest, or just past the half hour, signalling morning. Or the St Andrew's cross for longer periods of rest. Now, a lot of people think that being a miller is a job that can only be done by a man. But that's not true. And John, I think you were telling me a story about a mill not far from here.
A few miles from here there was another post mill in the family, run by an uncle, and it was said by the miller's daughter that when husband was away on delivery or on business, she had to keep the mill going after a windless spell, and she was able to stop and start the mill, haul grain up into the top floor using the sack hoist, and often she had to push the mill around into the wind on her own. Here at Wrawby, we like our volunteers to get involved in all the tasks in the milling, and our lady millers here often have to push the mill into the wind as the wind changes round.
Thank you, John, for you and your team showing us this wonderful old windmill and the way it works.
It's been a pleasure, John.
Thank you. Now perhaps you'd like to have a look at, let's say, Sibsey Windmill, another video on my website. Now Sibsey is a windmill that comes 100 years after this mill. Some of the technology you see here is at Sibsey, but it has been developed. And Sibsey lies at the top, if you like, of the development of windmill technology before it was all swept away by steam and oil and eventually electricity.